Well, we are now joined by way of telephone by Fergal Gaynor, who is the legal representative for the victims in that case at the ICC. Mr. Gaynor, perhaps the first question is, given this recent declaration by Fatou Bensouda, do you think, as we're asking in our big question tonight, that the case should be dropped for lack of evidence?
Well, it's a very good question to ask. And ordinarily, where the prosecution does not have sufficient evidence to go to trial against an accused person, it is right to withdraw charges against that person. Now, in this case, the accused person is the head of government of Kenya. He is the head of state of Kenya. He is obliged under the Constitution of Kenya to ensure that Kenya complies with all of its international obligations. One of those international obligations is to hand over all evidence which is relevant to his case, including evidence that might be inculpatory. What's clear over the past few months is that the government has been pursuing a policy of providing nominal cooperation while obstructing access to relevant documentary evidence and relevant witnesses which are located in Kenya. And in those circumstances, the prosecutors said that it would be inappropriate to withdraw the charges. So that, from the point of view of the victims, the prosecutor's stance is absolutely right. The accused, who is the president, cannot be rewarded for presiding over what amounts to a policy of obstructing access to relevant evidence and relevant witnesses in Kenya, which would allow the truth to emerge about who was really responsible for the crimes committed during the post-election violence.
All right. Now, you are saying that you think the government of Kenya is providing what you call nominal evidence, but the Attorney General, according to his statement today, says that the government is doing everything it can. You obviously don't believe this, but if this push and pull continues, what will be next in the case?
Well, what's next, first of all, is that the trial chamber must decide what to do with the case. The prosecutor has set forth her position. The defense will be allowed to put forth their position next week, as will I on behalf of the victims. One thing that the trial chamber will have to decide in due course is a pending application for a formal finding that Kenya is not cooperating with the ICC. The prosecution made that application in December of last year. And in March of this year, the trial chamber gave the government 6 more months to show that it was genuinely cooperating with the ICC in respect of the provision of evidence. Now, from what we've seen so far, the government has not provided genuine cooperation. On the 29th of July, the trial chamber gave a very reasoned decision in which it considered all of the legal arguments and practical issues which the government had raised as excuses for not providing the evidence. And it found at the end of that examination that the request by the prosecution, which was originally made 2.5 years ago, remember 2.5 years ago, that the request is specific, it's relevant, it's necessary, and that the government must comply with it. So we expect the trial chamber to take into account the views of all relevant parties and to rule in due course on those issues.
Well, Gaynor, you've brought up an issue of time, saying 2 years, something which is still pending in court. But this case has been ongoing since 15th of December 2010. I'm just curious to know what the victims feel about it. Are they frustrated? Would they rather it end? Do they want it to continue? Where do they stand at this point?
Well, keep in mind, I only represent the victims of the case against President Kenyatta. I've met over 1,000 of those victims since January of 2013. So far, not one of them has expressed to me the wish that these proceedings should be brought to an end. What they have expressed to me on many, many different occasions is the view that the prosecution and the court, by which I mean the judges, should remain absolutely firm and not to yield to the pressure which has been exerted upon them by the government of Kenya, which has consistently taken positions which are totally in defense, if you like, of the position of the president of Kenya and totally inconsistent with the rights of the victims. So they want us, or me rather on their behalf, to remain absolutely firm and for all to be done to rectify this violation of the statute, which has resulted in relevant evidence being withheld from the court.
Well, that's Fergal Gaynor, the legal representative of the victims in the case against President Uhuru Kenyatta at The Hague.